Good morning, everybody. Good morning, crew. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're on the lifeboat. It is 20 degrees out, and it feels like it's 20 degrees in. I don't know what the hell's going on with my house. You know, I like sleeping in the cold. I really do. I sleep way better when it's cold. And having been incarcerated, I got the opportunity to check out the extremes because I was in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, which is where all of the mobsters, all the famous mobsters in history went to Lewisburg. And they turned it into a SMU, a special management unit, like the whole permanently. Like when you get in deep trouble, you go to the SMU. And I went there for doing something really stupid. I put hands on a police officer, or I mean on a staff member, a corrections officer, I should say. Anyway, when I first got there, I got there in February. My cell didn't have a window, no lie. We were burning blankets on the floor to try to keep the cell warm. It was like you could see your breath, and when you're in the SMU, Special Management Unit, you don't have anything of any kind. They don't. You can't bring your clothing. You can't bring anything. So you wearing this paper thin jumpsuit, and they would give you a couple of extra blankets a week, knowing full well you were burning them. But sleeping in the really cold, when the summer would roll around, there's no air conditioning there either, and so it gave you the opportunity to see what it was like. What was worse? Was it worse sleeping when it was really, really hot or really, really cold, or the extremes? So I cut the heat at about 6 o'clock at night, but damn it. And maybe I shouldn't have done that last night because it is really cold and the heat has not really caught up. Can I get a 5x5? I'm not trying to do too much interacting, but I would like to make sure that I had one of the problems with not looking at the, all right, there you go. Appreciate you. So today's subject matter. Every once in a while, I'll tell people here on the boat why today's subject is today's subject. I'll say I got an email from somebody, and the email said this or that or whatever whatever the case may be. Right? It's so I like to share with you sort of the machinations of the mind and what exactly is going on with with why I end up on these subjects. And this one is really an important one for that, because so I got about 2 or 3 months ago, somebody sent me an email that said, "I'm really surprised that you use the term drug addiction. I'm surprised you use the word addiction." Because on this side of the pond, right, because the person who sent it was from Europe, they said, "We've done away with that phrase. We don't say drug addiction anymore. It's something that we no longer do." And the reason is there's such a stigma attached to the word addiction that they don't want to hurt anybody, And I understand where they're coming from on that, but I am also a big fan of owning things, and I'm a junkie. You can call me whatever you want, but that's what I call myself, because that's what I was doing. I was doing junk, and I was sticking it in a needle and putting it in my arm. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. But, so yesterday, that was months ago, and I've thought about it on and off. Am I a jerk for using the word addiction? Am I being cruel by using the word addiction and calling everybody on the boat drug addicts and blah, blah, blah? So then fast forward to yesterday, and somebody reached out to me. We picked up about 16 subscribers yesterday. Picked up a lot of them, probably because my bobbleheaded partner is back in business. He did a beautiful live stream last night over on Wages World, and usually when he talks about the lifeboat on Wages World, we pick up some new subscribers. We always pick up some great people too, which is awesome. But it was good to see Mark doing what Mark does and doing it well. He did a great live feed last night, and he put to bed any of the speculation that there was something going. The two of us fought, and that's why he left the boat. Apparently, a bunch of people have asked him that, and he came on and said, "Man, I've got nothing to do with any of that. I love the lifeboat." He also promised that he's going to be back here doing some videos. Maybe not full time, but he's going to be back here doing some videos. So that's a pretty cool thing. But so last night somebody reached out to me and they said in an email, they said, doesn't it scare you a little bit just how dependent people have become on the lifeboat? Not dependent to drugs, dependent on the lifeboat. In other words, without the lifeboat, these people are going to collapse or whatever, or blah, blah, blah. And boy, oh boy, you talk about coming unglued on somebody. And I didn't do it. I wasn't mean. I was not mean. I was not, but I didn't stop talking for probably about 25 minutes. This poor person had to hear a lifeboat show in their ear. I got on a roll and just could not stop talking. When I was done, I thought, I should probably be talking about that on the lifeboat. Dependence is the state of relying on or being controlled by someone or something else. Did you catch that? It is the state of relying on or being controlled by someone or something else. So people have traded one dependence on drugs or alcohol for a dependence on the lifeboat. And am I worried about that? I believe that the relying on or being controlled by is the key. You were controlled by drugs. Now you're relying on a group of people to help you stay sober and move forward. You were controlled by your substance of choice. You had zero control. And now you're relying on a family that you built that care enough about you that they'll get up at 2 a.m., whatever time, and talk to you, right? Do whatever it takes to help you. Am I worried about that? Boy, do you think this person caught some hell? Do you think this person caught just an earful of hell? Because they did. I said, why in the name of God would I be upset or worried about that? Why would I be worried about that? It's the greatest concept in the entire world. People, so many times on the boat, we talk about breaking habits. We talk about, is it easier to break a habit or replace a habit? Is it easier to sit and concentrate on the negative, the removal of something? Or is it easier to try to develop something that is going to turn you into a better person? Something that you do on a daily basis. Well, we were all dependent. We all had dependency. Every single person here, right? And those of us, because I've got people here that don't do drugs, right? There are people here that don't do any kind of dope. That does not mean for a second that they're not dependent on something. I have seen people dependent on other people. I've seen people dependent on cash. And I don't mean, we all need money in order to survive. It's tough to pay the rent without it. But I mean, I've seen people whose entire structure for their life revolved around money, making it, talking about it, loving it. Workaholic. That's the kind of thing that can be an absolute dependence. You know what? I don't think I could get through without some coffee too. Boy, people, yesterday I went back out to shovel snow and it was about 1.5 feet deep. Absolutely awful. So the question becomes, what are you going to be dependent on? The question becomes, where is going to be your dependency? When I talked about how Q got me sober, he said, make a list of all of the reasons that you want to stay sober. Make a list of all of the reasons why you never want to do dope again as long as you live. And I've said many times here on the boat that this was essential for me because at the time, I didn't care enough about myself to get sober for myself. We all know the cliche, well, you got to do it for you. Can't do it for somebody else. If you try to do it for somebody else, you're going to fail. You got to do it for you. I couldn't do it for me. I didn't like me. Not even a little. Couldn't stand me. In fact, deep down, I hated myself. And I was aware of that. So I started to make a list. And the really funny thing is that list that I made, that was more than anything in the world. I wanted the people on that list to respect me. I wanted the people on that list to love me. And I didn't want to disappoint the people on that list anymore. And what's really amazing is over the course of a 7.5-year period of time, the people that I put on that list have come to rely on me, to be dependent on me. That was something that I didn't think was even remotely possible. Do you know why it happened? Because I shifted my dependence from tar heroin to a black man that had been convicted of murder. That's what it came down to. I changed what I was dependent on. And I was willing to hand my dependence over to somebody. I was willing to hand my dependence over to a group of people that wanted to become better. I started going to every meeting I could go to. And I hated 12-step programs. I've told you that before. I don't like them. I could probably go to them now because of a different mindset and a respect for what they do now that I didn't have back then. But they would do NAAA. They would probably do 2 meetings a week of each. I went to all of them. And they used to say, unlike on the street where they don't really care, they were very vicious about the whole, if your substance of choice wasn't alcohol, they didn't want you at the AA one. And so when I went to the AA one, I would tell them that I used to have a drinking problem. And then when I went to NA, I would be a little bit more honest and open. But I did everything within my power to make sure that I became dependent on something other than drugs. Shifting that dependence will give you back your independence. As opposed to being controlled by, you need to start relying on. Make sense? I mean, when you look at the definition of it, there's 2 aspects to that definition. One is relying on, and the other is being controlled by. We have been controlled by a substance. How do we forgive ourselves for the things that we've done in the past? Because we were being controlled by a substance. Dependence. We were being controlled by alcohol. We were being controlled by cocaine. We were being controlled by heroin. How the hell are you going to beat the crap out of yourself for the next 3 decades if you didn't have control over the things you were doing? Doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense, does it? So the show that I did the other day, when I talked about, that just got bright all of a sudden. The show that I did the other day when I talked about forgiving yourself and still owning up to the things that you've done in the past. This is what I'm talking about. The disease concept. Fine, you can't understand the disease concept. That's just too much to wrap your dome around. How about the dependence? You don't want to call it a disease, call it a dependence. The act of relying on or being controlled by. My light is going out. You are being controlled by a substance. You are absolutely 100% being controlled by a substance. And you want to judge yourself pretty damn harshly, I might add, for what you did while you were on that substance. Does that make a lot of sense? So I want you to shift your dependence. And I'll tell you something. There's something completely self-serving about that, isn't it? I want you to shift from drugs and alcohol to the lifeboat. Doesn't sound nice, especially if you're the guy that runs the lifeboat. I don't care if it's here or somewhere else. I want you to shift from being dependent and controlled by a substance, right? You are being controlled by booze. You are being controlled by cocaine, whatever the case may be. Now I want you to shift from being controlled by to being a part of a family, a part of a group of people. And if you don't find it here, that's fine. I'm not going to be upset at you. But go find it somewhere, because you're not going to do this alone. Doesn't work out. It doesn't. And of course, somebody's going to email me tonight and tell me they did it alone. Well, you're the statistical anomaly. Okay? I've said that there's a million ways to get sober. And there's a million different stories of how people got sober. But if you took that million, there's probably a half a dozen of people that made it completely on their own. It is not something that works out very well. It's not something that works out very well. And I'll tell you something, people. The word dependent is very interesting because in the last 2 or 3 decades, codependence is something that we had never heard that term before 2 or 3 decades ago. And now it is one of the absolute buzzwords of anything having to do with psychology. And I'll tell you something, people. I used to go and find codependent women. I mean, there was nothing conscious about it, but every woman I found was codependent. And I was that perfect guy, for a codependent woman. I was articulate. I could carry on a conversation. I was pretty in touch with my emotions, right? I seemed like a pretty decent catch from the outside. I worked as a public speaker, so I made a lot of money. But when you got inside that circle, I was doing 7 grams of dope a day, and nothing was more important than that dope. And it usually took somebody 4 months, 5 months to realize I was doing drugs at all, because you didn't know I was doing drugs until you saw me sober. And I usually had enough cash to not run out. However, when I would run out, all of a sudden they would realize that this guy that they thought was a pretty good catch needed to be taken care of. And they would become addicted to taking care. And I'm sure that in some part of my brain, this was just a dirtbag thing to do so that when I ran out of money, I would have a woman whose cash I could use to get well. Honestly, it was not something I ever did consciously, but boy, oh boy, have I hunted down, codependent women throughout my entire career. And I'll tell you something, we these days, obviously everyone knows I spend a tremendous amount of time with Lady Crispin. And I was doing something with business a couple of weeks ago, and she works for my company. Absolutely, legitimately works for my company. She tracks down watches, does things like that. And when that gold watch got lost, and I had bought another one, and I was trying to come up with money, she said, I could probably send you, and I probably chewed her head off. She said, I could send you a little bit of money. And I went, no way. It's not happening. And I was probably not very nice about it. And afterwards, it really took me a lot of time to sit and think about why I became such a dick, for lack of a better way to put it. So when I apologized to her afterwards, I said, you know what? When it really comes down to it, there's never been a woman in my life that I haven't taken money from, ever. And it's not going to happen with you. And once I articulated that, I seemed like less of a dick for what I had said, But I am very, very dependent on my relationship with her. But I'm not controlled by it. Nothing in my life is going to control me ever again. Nothing. I have no problem whatsoever being dependent on every single one of the 19 people who are here right now and the 3,675 that, are going about their Sunday. I don't mind being dependent on the lifeboat. So, as I said, I yelled at this person on the phone last night. I didn't yell at him. I just gave him a rip-roaring speech. That sounded a lot like the one I'm doing now. And I said, and you know where you're missing the boat? Do you know where you're missing the boat on this? I'm dependent on them. Doesn't it upset you that these people are all dependent on you? I'm dependent on them. It's kind of a beautiful situation, in all honesty. The really funny thing, people, is this. I don't know anybody that doesn't have an entire filing cabinet full of things that they need to unpack from their brain to make themselves happy. Right? The people that look down their snout at us because we have a medical condition that makes it very difficult for us to say no to chemicals. Those people are reading 35 self-help books a year trying to find out why they're miserable. And what's really funny is I am now, maybe not now, it was getting to a point where people were reaching out to me for advice, life advice, like I'm a guru, like I'm Tony Robbins. And, I would say to people, what's your substance of choice? Well, actually, I've never been addicted to anything. I said, and you're looking for life help from me? I said, me and the crew lean on one another and are dependent upon one another because we understand one another. We've all been in the same boat. I don't know how to help people that haven't been drug addicts. Doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's really a situation, people, where once again, you're not going to be trying to break a habit. You're going to be trying to create a new one. And I'm not lecturing the crew because it's 5 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast. And you people are up and listening to me. And, when I first started the lifeboat, this was an absolutely intricate part of the dream. I wanted to start every morning having a place where addicts could go and just spend 30, 40 minutes in the morning concentrating on what it means to live a better life. Concentrating on what it means to be dependent on a program instead of a chemical. What it means to be dependent on other people instead of drug dealers or bartenders. And I scrapped it after about 30 days because I was getting maybe 70 or 80 people that would see a live feed back in the beginning, maybe 100. I think we may have even been up around 100. But I would shoot a morning video and 6 people would see it. And it was difficult to get up and try to work out one of those videos every day when you don't think anybody's watching it. I love the fact that 100 people are seeing these. We used to get about 350 to 400 views on every video I did. And now, which meant we got 300 to 400 views a day. Now we still get 300 to 400 views a day, but we get it on 2 different videos. And I don't have a problem with that. I swear to God, I don't. I don't give two. In fact, I think this is a way better setup. I think it's a really great idea. Why? Because you're becoming dependent on something other than chemicals. You're becoming dependent on a program. It really is one of those things. I'm just asking everybody. I really am. I'm asking everybody to do a very small list of things. If you want to live your best life, and you're here because you were dependent, i.e. being controlled by a substance, then there is not a lot of things that I need you to do in order to try to get clean and stay clean. But the things that I'm going to recommend that you do, you should really friggin' do. I used to say, this is just a suggestion. I'm going to rephrase these things. These are suggestions, and the people who do these suggestions remain sober. The people who choose one from column A and one from column B and decide not to do half of the stuff that we talk about tend to relapse a lot. Get a damn notebook and start journaling. How many times on here do we say the brain is not your friend? Well, you give the brain all kinds of ammunition to kick the ever-loving hell out of you when you allow thoughts to go like this around your brain, right? Your subconscious to beat the piss out of you. So how do you make that stop? You make that stop by getting all of that stuff off of your mind. And you do that by journaling, or as I call it, dumping. Open up the brain, let everything in there fall out first thing in the morning and then right before you go to bed. That simple. That simple. Please take up journaling. Please take up journaling. If you don't, this is going to be a very difficult process. Put your room in order. And then pick another room. And then pick another room. And pretty soon you will have your house in order. It will be one of those situations where you won't be looking at the same mess. You won't be looking at the same stimuli that you've been looking at the entire time you were an addict. You understand that a change people, places, and things. I get emails every single month, sometimes every single week from people that say, look, man, I'm not going to move. Okay, don't. How about just rearranging your apartment? As in, don't have 3 weeks worth of dirty clothes in the corner. Don't take your shirt off and throw it on the floor before you get into bed. Hang some stuff up. We're trying to make our brain come to the realization that there's a new regime in town, right? There's a new boss taking over this entire establishment, and that boss is me. You. When the time came for me to get sober, I had been letting a brain make me do unbelievable things because of my addiction for decades. Robbing banks, running guns, hurting people, being an absolute nozzle. When I took over and said, no more of this crap, every single action that I did had to tell my brain that there was a new sheriff in town. Every single action. Making my bed. The brain's going, what the hell is he doing? I don't think he's ever done that. Why is he making that bed? And I had to keep doing that until the brain basically just gave up. Why is he writing in a journal? He never did that before. What the hell is he going outside to walk for? It's 20 degrees. You're going to begin to take over your brain, or you're just going to let it continue to kick the hell out of you. Oh, I actually was talking to a couple of YouTube professionals. A couple of people reached out to me for no other reason than to be kind. They didn't want to do collabs. They just said, I've been watching your show. One isn't even an addict, but they said, I've been watching your show and I can't believe you don't have way more subscribers than you do. And I said, thank you. That's an awfully nice thing to say. They said, but let me tell you all the places you're making a mistake. For instance, people, please hit the bell for notification. That way, every time I go live, you won't miss anything. And please hit the thumbs up button. Unless by some chance you absolutely hate what I'm doing here, in which case hit the thumbs down button, because either one of them is going to give me a readout at the end of every video, and I can scroll back and it'll say approval or disapproval, and I can start looking at what I'm doing in each video so that I can tailor these things to be better for people who are trying to get sober. There you go. That's my YouTube pitch for today. Oh, you know what? So yesterday I went and picked up my prescriptions. And I did it at Smith's, which is it's like a Kroger or just a national chain of grocery stores. And I go there just to pick up my prescriptions because it's the cheapest place to get scripts. I don't even have to carry one of those little cards to get the discount. It's a great place to get my stuff. But it's a long drive. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But while I was there, I thought, I'm just going to get everything that I need here so that I don't have to go shopping over to Walmart, which is on a different side of town. And in doing so, I bought different creamer for my coffee, and I am bummed the hell out. I bought hazelnut creamer. You would think if you bought hazelnut creamer that it would taste like hazelnut regardless of who makes it. That is simply not the case. This does not taste like hazelnut. In fact, it tastes a little bit like, it tastes a little bit like crap. That's what it tastes like. It tastes like crap. It's just absolutely awful. It's not good at all. I've heard it said that repeating a task for 21 days creates a habit. Well, I've done some studying on this. I've also heard that 14 days, right? There are so many different people out there that will tell you how long it takes to develop a habit. Now, the truth of the matter is this. If you are somebody that can develop a habit very, very quickly, they say 28 days is about the bottom of the number. It takes about a month of doing something day in, day out to create a habit. However, it can take you up to 256 days. Right? This was a landmark study. They studied tons and tons and tons of people, and that's really what we're looking at. So you're looking at a month to almost an entire year. I found this channel through Alaska Preppers Live yesterday. Really? Alaska Prepper mentioned the lifeboat on his live yesterday? Wow, that is a very, very cool thing. I'm a huge fan of Alaska Prepper. That is really, really cool. He's done some amazing work. Talking about the fentanyl crisis that's currently going on in this country, and there's not a lot of people that will jump outside their comfort zone to talk about that. I really, really respect that. It might have tasted better in the Vegemite mug. All right, Murphy. Out. I'm so glad I don't have to get scripts anymore. Spent half my life in line at the pharmacy. I'm glad that, yeah, you're all right, Charlie. I love you, bud. I love you. And you know what's really sad is that you guys beat this Vegemite thing. And I had said that I have hardly spoken a word today. Is that because you're trying to keep me happy in the comment section? Is that it? At the end of this, are we talking about addiction here? Paul Sargent, I do about 30 minutes of addiction in the morning. And then I get into the comment section where very often someone will say to me, I'm going to relapse in the next 10 minutes. I'm thinking of taking my own life. And they list all of the different things that, are going on. And that's where I find people that I can say, what I would like you to do is reach out to me at sober@myyahoo.com. Sober@myyahoo.com. So the first 30 minutes of this were absolutely about that. Now what I am trying to do is look at the people in the comment section and see whether or not these people are struggling or exactly what's going on. I'm glad that you found this, and I'm glad you found it through Alaska Prepper. I didn't even realize he knew who I was. So that's kind of a cool thing. It really is. We have a kind of a different concept here on the Lifeboat, right? We don't subscribe to 12-step programs, at least from this seat. You can do whatever you want because there are so many different ways to get to the finish line in terms of getting sober. I am a convicted bank robber. I'm a convicted gun runner who went to federal prison and did about a decade. During that time, I was still doing heroin every single day inside the federal prison system, and frightening amounts of it. What I had to do, you've been a drinker for 27 years, but I'm 15 days from 1 year sober. My God, good for you, man. Hear that, crew? Can we get some singles up there in the... let's throw some ones up there for Paul. Paul, congratulations, man. After 27 years. Do you mind if I ask how old you are? Just out of curiosity. If you don't want to answer that, you don't have to. It really is just a curiosity thing. Jesus is Luke Skywalker, 10 years now. Oh, man, good for you, brother. Good for you. Yeah, Paul, it's really 50. You know what? And I wasn't being a jerk, I promise you. This is a recurring theme. Every time somebody has said between 15 to 25 years of abuse, they tend to be my age, exactly my age. And so here's what's a little different for how we do sobriety here. Number one, I don't care what method you take. I don't. But there are a bunch of things about the sobriety community that I think have been an issue, and you don't have to agree with everything I say by any stretch of the imagination. But I would like you to know what I do believe. There are a whole bunch of things that you will hear repeated so often that these cliches have become fact. You can't quit until you're ready to quit. I wasn't ready to quit. I got thrown into a federal prison, right? Had absolutely no desire to quit. Even when I was quitting, I didn't have a desire to quit. I wasn't ready. You got to quit for yourself. No, you don't. No, you don't. I didn't quit for myself. And most people who do quit don't quit for themselves. They stay sober for themselves. But the day that you have to quit using drugs, you don't care about yourself. You're at rock bottom more often than not. Whether it's drugs or alcohol, you have brought yourself to the lowest point that you could possibly be without really going the final mile, right? That is the bottom of the barrel. And you love yourself enough that day to quit, do you? So what I did is I made a list of every single person that I felt I wanted to quit for. Every reason. The person that I was working with said, write down every reason you've got to get off of this crap. And I did. That was one entire page. And that page actually turned into several, but those were the reasons. And when you really feel like you're going to cave in, those are also the reasons that you don't. I changed my worldview. It's just poison. I've learned that from Soberly on YouTube channel. It is poison. Make no mistake, it's poison. Alcohol gets filtered out through your liver because that's what the liver does. It removes poisons. And drugs, even in the best of days, go back to the 80s when drugs were a lot safer than they are today, they were still poison. They're still there just to poison your mind and destroy you. Sadly, the drugs that are on the street these days, they're not even drugs. They're literally poison. You have gotten to the point now in America where if you're doing a drug, fent is in it. And if you're doing fent, chances are you're also getting xylazine, which is a horse tranquilizer that eats flesh and kills people and is completely resistant to Narcan. The beast from the East, right? The people that manufacture everything we're stupid enough to buy also manufactures all the drugs that are ending up on the streets in our country. I am of the firm belief that we are in the middle of World War III. I really believe that. And that is their new weapon. It's both fat and water soluble, so can affect every cell. Well, you know what? It's also hypoglycemic, right? So it's going to suck all of the sugar completely out of your body, which leaves your brain with not enough glucose to function the way it's supposed to. And you're absolutely right in terms of the water thing. Alcohol absolutely loves water and will suck it out of virtually every single cell in your body. This is why when you wake up in the morning after a good day of drinking or a good night of drinking, that, you know, like sometimes your tongue will even have dried to the roof of your mouth. And I'm not saying that to be funny. Like these experiences really happen. And you just get absolutely dehydrated to the point where, you know, when you first get up, you've got to just start drinking and getting as much water as you possibly can into your body. For that reason, anybody that's quitting and trying to get off booze, I absolutely recommend getting as much water into your system as you can. I recommend also fasting is really a good thing. Paul, we were talking about fasting yesterday. There are, you know, the intermittent fasts that I did a lot of intermittent fasting when I was getting sober in prison. And one of the reasons was I had let myself go and I was 285 pounds or something like that. I was very, very overweight. And intermittent fasting helped me to get that under control. You know, it really helped me get, you know, the weight thing under control. And then from there, I had to start working just like everyone else. You lost 70 pounds? Good for you, Paul. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Yeah, I got down to about 210, and then when the time came to leave prison, and you know, when I got out, I got a little bit spoiled, and these days I'm closer to 220 again. But I'm curious, Paul, what kind of fasting you're doing? Is it intermittent fasting, or are you doing, you know, you doing 48 hours, 72 hours a week? And is there a religious component of any kind to it? You know, I've done fasting both ways, and I'm a pretty big fan of using fasting in religion as well. But that's just me. Dude, you look in great shape. If you're referring to me, I really went out of my way when I left prison. I've taken down all of the pictures on Instagram. I mean, just shut down the Instagram is what I did. But you know, you got nothing but time on your hands in prison, you know? And if I wasn't running a sobriety group of some kind, I was just working on abs. I wanted to leave with abs, and I did. I had a vicious six-pack when I left, especially for an old man. I eat every 4 days. Just found out about it on YouTube by accident. Every 4 days? Damn, Paul. Man, that's heavy duty. That really is. I hope that you're, I'm sure you're doing, I'm not going to lecture you on any of that. I'm sure that you're doing everything to take care of yourself, because if you read about it, then I absolutely must have water and lots of it to maintain hydration. Never really was a big drinker of alcohol, though. Then you're blessed, right? You're absolutely blessed. I'm aquaphobic unless it has coffee in it. Well, water's a really good thing. If you find yourself aquaphobic, because there are people who can't stand drinking water, and I hear this all the time. I'm so upset and anxious. Talk to me, Luke Skywalker. Do me a favor, man. Get over right now to sober@myyahoo.com and dump your digits there. Do it while I'm still talking. Go over to sober@myyahoo.com and give me your phone number. And we will speak real quickly before I do the church thing this morning. But if you're upset and anxious, and this goes for anybody on the boat, always, as addicts, if you find yourself upset or anxious, there's a really good chance that whatever is going on in your life, you're holding it inside, right? Shining a light on our problems takes all the sting out of those problems. And quickly, every single thing that threatens your sobriety can be cured by talking to other people who have managed to get sober and remain sober. That's why group therapy works. That's why this type of leaning on one another, a dependence to something other than alcohol, has always worked. I'm the one who doesn't do water, but I will make a point to add it in. You know what? The Southern Grace 8, there is some stuff that you can buy these days, comes in a little deal, and you drop like 2 drops of it into the water, and it flavors the water so that it tastes like something else. It's a pretty good thing. You know, it really is. Well, it's not even just a matter of we all need friends, because we do. Make no mistake, we all need friends. But my firm belief is that the opposite of addiction is connection, right? The opposite of addiction is not sober. I know people that don't use, who are not even close to sober, because they're white knuckling it, and the time is coming where they're going to relapse, because white knuckling only works until it doesn't. But to develop a dependence on a system, to develop a dependence on a group of people who are sober. Paul, we like the fact that you're here. So the opposite of addiction is dependence. I mean, the opposite of addiction is connection. Hang with me on this. When you use, my drug of choice was heroin. And when I was using, I would be hanging out often with 3 guys that would go out and basically rob together. And the reason was we could carpool and it would save gas, because literally $1 put into the gas tank was $1 I wasn't putting in my arm. And that was an issue. So we would all go out and rip stuff off together. My definition of a friend is one who does not sell me or enable me to do drugs. It's a great definition. It's a great definition. I would add to it this. They don't judge you for anything that you did when you were under the influence of this stuff. You know, they don't judge you. It is a very difficult thing. It is a very, very difficult thing to open up and talk about the most inner workings of the mind, trying to get sober, and then having the people that you're talking to go, and look down their nose at you. And you know what? It's not their fault. It really isn't. Think about this from a logical standpoint. Let's use me as an example, right? Because I don't want to use anybody else as an example. This is what happens. I get thrown in prison, right? I get out. I stay sober for about 6, maybe 8 months. And then I come off the wagon, right? And when I come off the wagon, what happens? I get thrown back in prison. I marry my attorney. Beautiful blonde girl, looks like Britney Spears, no joke. Looks exactly like Britney Spears. I married my attorney. I got out. We started having a great life. We went in, we went on vacations. We did everything. And then I did dope again. And then I started to run guns because I couldn't rob banks anymore. So I started to buy and sell guns as a way to supply my drug habit. Now, I go and start having this conversation with anybody who's never been addicted to something. And I say, yeah, so when I got out of prison after marrying the attorney, I knew I couldn't rob banks anymore, but I started using heroin. That's it. Their mind shuts down because they're thinking, how in the name of God could you be stupid enough to go back and use again, knowing full well that if you do use again, you are just going to end up back in prison? It doesn't make sense to them. You understand? It makes absolutely no sense. It's not their fault. It's like speaking 2 different languages. So my definition of a friend, I can have friends that don't understand sobriety, but I'm not calling them when I need help. We can play golf together. We can do things like that. But it is absolutely essential that when I'm putting together my sobriety team, I'm putting together a group of people Hold on one second. Man, holy smokes, dude, wow. I don't know what we're holy smokes wowing about. Damn, Tommy, I want to see a picture of her. You know what? I can send you one in an email. I would never put it up here. Look at that. That's her name. I don't ever not have a watch on, but her name is still tattooed on my wrist, so you never see it because of the watch. She was about 11 years younger than me. And much like white knuckling doesn't work white knuckling works until it doesn't. She was a great wife until she wasn't, And when she wasn't, it was because I destroyed her. I took this girl from a lawyer to somebody that was literally stealing identities. That's on me. And there's nothing that I can ever do that is going to make that okay. There is nothing that I could ever do that is going to, that can restore her to what she was before I destroyed her. Now, tar heroin was at the helm, but I got to own that. I really do. I got to own that. And this person was very, very dedicated. If I didn't do dope, the two of us would still be married, and that's the truth. I'm going to set my alarms to catch the lives. You guys are the best. And not to feel judged, but encouraged to keep going is priceless. Southern Grace 8, we are live on the 5s. Okay, Paul, that's you as well. I did drugs in my 20s and 30s, clean now. And clean off of the hooch for an entire year, or almost. But hopefully you'll be here on your 365th day so that we can kind of celebrate this thing together. Because I think that's epic, man. Proud as hell of you. So you've dumped every single one of those things. If you're talking to me, Luke Skywalker, with the you're really cool, I appreciate that. I really do. Here's the deal, though. In so many ways, I was the world's biggest dirtbag. Truthfully. If you're just stumbling across the lifeboat, I don't want anybody here thinking that I am anything other than what I am. I had a 7 gram a day dope habit. And that 7 gram a day dope habit caused me to rob over a dozen banks. And it caused me to hurt people for money. It caused me to do things that, dependence is the act of, being dependent or being controlled by. I was so controlled by heroin that I was willing to go and hurt people for money. My morning alarm is the lifeboat. Thanks, Bert. I appreciate that. And I got so off the rails, people, that it was, I don't want anybody to think that I'm anything other than I am. I'm a drug addict just like everybody else, and I'm just trying to stay sober, right? So I went to state prison first. Then I went to federal prison for bank robbery. I hired a law firm to represent me, and they sent up what I thought was a paralegal because they had sent paralegals 2 days in a row. And I said, I'm looking at doing the rest of my life in prison. You send one more paralegal up here, and I'm going to find a different law firm to represent me. And I go up there, and there's my girl, whose name I'd rather not share with the world because she doesn't deserve that anymore. But I walked around the corner and went, good Lord. I mean, they sent another paralegal, but I'd look at her. And I walked over and said, you know what? I said, no offense to you, because you are one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. And there's not a lot of beauty in a place like this because I was in jail. I said, but I said, I don't want to talk to a paralegal again. And I made that really clear. And she was wearing a sweatshirt that said Sublime on it, like didn't look like an attorney. And she said to me, I'm not a paralegal, I'm your attorney. And I said, well, with all due respect, you don't look like an attorney. And she said, with all due respect, you don't look like a bank robber. And that was the start of a relationship that went about 8 years. It went about 8 years. And I'm glad that she's in the rearview mirror. I really wish that I hadn't hurt her in the process. Virginia, it's on Lena Petrova YouTube channel. Take a look. Not sure if I know what's on Lena Petrova YouTube channel, but maybe I'll take a look anyway. Did everybody hear about the bill to prohibit the U.S. CBDC? No, I have not. So, Luke Skywalker, here's the deal. As an addict, you're going to be uncomfortable in your own skin. If you give yourself any kind of downtime whatsoever, you are going to become very, very uncomfortable in your own skin. That's just the way it goes. Right? The reason that we use drugs, the reason that we get drunk, the reason we do whatever is because we're not comfortable being ourselves. So if you find yourself feeling anxious or uncomfortable or whatever, that's when you need to do something about it. Nothing magical is ever going to take away those feelings. What you're going to need to do is replace those uncomfortable thoughts with other ones. That's what it comes down to. Your brain cannot do two things at the same time. So if you feel like you're really, really uncomfortable, replace that. Replace it. This is why journaling is great. If you're sitting down and writing, right, then the things that are making you uncomfortable are going to end up on that paper. You think I'm kidding? Give it a try. Give it a try. And if you're really uncomfortable and you're starting to get scared and you're thinking about dope, whatever, change what you're looking at. Get out of the room that you're in. Go outside. I don't care if it's 20 below. Get yourself out of the room you're in. Don't stare at the same four walls. Go outside, take a deep breath, walk for 20 minutes. Do whatever you got to do. When you walk outside and you leave where you're at, when you start those feelings of, I'm uncomfortable and you're getting anxious or whatever, the part of your brain that is doing that isn't your frontal lobe. It is the part of your brain that governs your emotions, right? So you're getting emotional. Whether you realize it or not, that's what's happening. You're getting emotional. So we need to get from emotional to logical. We need to shift all of that to the frontal lobe. So how do you do that, right? Well, when you walk outside and you start looking around at you're getting bombarded, all of your senses, you're smelling something new, right? You're looking at something new. Nothing is the same. You got wind in your face instead of being inside in an environment that's almost hermetic. Now you're outside and you're seeing cars go by and you're seeing all of these different things. You're bombarding your senses. You're going to feel different. Anytime something novel happens to us, right? So if you spend 2 years, right, in the same prison cell, and all of a sudden they take you to a van outside so that they can bring you to an airport and send you to another prison. When they put you in that van, you're going to get a hit of dopamine. When you change from any situation to any other situation that is novel, as in you're changing your environment, dopamine's going to hit you. Now, it's not going to be like you just did smack or you did a big line of blow. It's not like that. But you're going to get a hit of dopamine. Dopamine is in your brain to help you anytime you're feeling something novel. So, for the love of God, why do you think that when you get sober, you got to change every single... I am Paul. I am absolutely religious. Why do you feel like you got to change everything about who you are when you get sober? Because you're going to shift your life into a completely different realm. And when you do, everything will be novel. And you'll be getting hits of dopamine. Because guess what? You're not going to get them anywhere else once you quit. You really need to do everything in your power to make that happen. I should have taken my socks off before going to bed. I was really anxious and uncomfortable this morning. Peterson's agency tactic. But it's 6 degrees. Wow. Paul, not religious, but learning to develop a relationship with my Creator. I think that that's a really good idea. Because if you do not develop a relationship with something else other than you, then you make yourself the center of the universe. And if you make yourself the center of the universe, let me know how it works out. We all made ourselves the center of our own universe, and we became drug addicts and alcoholics. You could argue with me on that all you'd like, but you're wrong, because you made yourself the center of the universe. There was nothing other than you, and you became a drug addict. There was nothing other than me, and I became a bank robber. So I'm pretty comfortable with there being a higher power. M. Hunt. What a Great reference. A great reference. I'm guessing it'll be lost on a lot of people, but it's a damn good reference. I do grok, I guess. So, the only rule we have here, Paul, is this. You can say, I'm praying for you. You can say, God bless you. You can say, I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith. The one that we don't do is, my God's better than your God, or let me tell you why you're not getting into heaven. Neither of those things fly on the boat, right? We just don't do that because everybody's religion is the most personal thing in the world to them. The most personal thing in the world to them. So we don't want to step on that in any way, shape, or form. We just don't, right? At all. Well, that's because I've been a stranger in a strange land at least once or twice in my life. Alrighty, peeps. Well, speaking of religion, it's Sunday. And do you know what that means in the Scoville household? It means I'm going to go put on some nice clothing, pick out one of my favorite watches, and go spend some time with my God in his house. I didn't know there was a difference. Sorry. No. I don't think you have any reason to say sorry about anything. No, Paul. No, there's no... No. Yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm only telling you this because we used to put it on at the trailer at the beginning of every one of my videos. You've done nothing wrong, Paul. No reason for a sorry at all. I'm explaining this because we can talk about God all day long. I want everybody to understand. And since I no longer put it in the beginning, I probably need to put it in the beginning again. I know you guys didn't like seeing it, and I didn't like listening to my own voice before I go live. Honestly. M. Hunt's about to start painting. Hey, Skywalker, I don't see an email from you. If you're feeling uncomfortable, then you know how to reach out to me, all right? Yeah, hit the like button on the way out. Hey, Paul Sargent, I am really glad you found the lifeboat, but no sorry required. You didn't do a darn thing wrong, I promise you. I was just explaining to you some of the policies here because I don't do them in the beginning anymore. Liked and shared. Boy, that's huge. I love it when people share the lifeboat. Charlie Murphy, drive carefully. Have a great day. People, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. I will see you at 5 o'clock tonight. I will be with the squirrel. I love you. Have a great day. God bless.